you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.
When word of the attack reached Old Town, Lord Hightower sent his son Adam with a strong force to retake Nightsong, but the Dornish had anticipated just that thing. A second Dornish army, under Sir Joffrey Dane, came down from Starfall and attacked the city. Old Town's walls proved far too strong for the Dornish to overcome, but Dane burned the fields, farms, and villages for 20 leagues around the city, and slew Lord Hightower's younger son, Garmin, when the boy led a sortie against him. Sir Adam Hightower reached Nightsong only to find that Lord Fowler had put the castle to the torch and its garrison to the sword. Lord Caron and his wife and children had been carried back to Dorne as captives. Rather than pursue, Sir Adam returned at once to Old Town to relieve the city, but Sir Joffrey and his army had melted back into the mountains as well. Welcome back to the Throne of the Dragon podcast, the show that covers each and every episode of HBO's House of the Dragon, and in the off season, we are covering each and every chapter of Fire and Blood. I'm Josh. That's Curtis.
Oh, yeah, okay. I didn't know if I was supposed to be saying something or not.
I know we've been switching it up on our other shows. So
yeah. Well, I had on mute because I've been.
Oh wait.
Yeah. Well, I had on mute because I was coughing a lot, so it's kind of like I don't know if I should be off mute here or not. Get ready to say my name. So yeah. That intro was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be.
The quote?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that wasn't a quote. That was a chapter.
That wasn't a chapter. That was like maybe a paragraph.
Oh man,
maybe. That quote though is going to set the tone for the kind of warfare that we're going to be dealing with here in Dorne.
Now, is that from Fire and Blood?
Yeah, that is a quote from Fire and Blood, from this week's chapter that we're covering, The Wars of King Aegon the First.
Sweet.
So I think where we left off, well, actually, before we start getting into this, you finished Game of Thrones, right?
I did. I couldn't remember if we talked about that on the last episode or not, but yeah. Yep, I finished it.
What is your impression of the Dornish so far? Since in this episode we're going to be covering a lot of Dorne stuff.
They're pretty crazy. They're very confident in themselves. One of them was a little too cocky and it cost his life. That's one thing that bothered me was the Red Viper. What was his real name though?
Oberyn Martell.
Oberyn, that's right. Yeah, Oberyn. Oh God, that whole time he's fighting the mountain, and he gets to the part where it's like, okay, you think he's gonna win? You know, he's got him on the ropes, and it's just like, just finish him, dude. Why you gotta be all cocky all of a sudden? You know, which I get. You know, it's I get I understand like, you know, the reason for it and everything, and you know, most people would probably feel the same way in that moment, but it's like, just end it, dude, because you're prolonging his death, and it's gonna give him more time to get back up on his feet, you know, or make a move on you, and that's what ended up happening. I remember too that part where he just like ends up crushing his skull. I was like, oh God, oh my God.
That one punch knocks like all of his teeth out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I excuse me. I think like I said, I think there are people that are very confident in themselves and their I guess you could say empire, their country, their people, their culture.
They're very proud.
Very proud, very confident in themselves, and they seem like they're very crazy. Not like insane, but I mean that would be one group I would think that like if you know you're going into war with them, you got a little fear in your heart of like, I don't know what these people are gonna do. What were they going to come at me with,
Mhm.
Um, so
That was
got
one of
some.
the reasons that in House of the Dragon, Kristen Cole is such kind of a scary and unpredictable character. Is because he spent a lot of time in the Dornish marches,
Oh, really?
which
Okay.
is the in-between ground, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
raids that happen there. There's a lot of fighting that happens there,
Okay.
and against these people who are, like you're saying, are pretty wild. Um, so you would
They're
say
like
probably
they're almost like a civilized version of the Dothraki. They're pretty wild.
okay.
I mean, not. I don't know. That might be a bad example. Um,
I
I don't
get
know.
what you're trying to say, though, like
You know
that
what I'm saying?
comparison. Yeah,
You know. Yeah,
yeah.
he knows.
Um, would you say that Oberyn's kind of your gauge for like kind of a
Who they
crazy
are.
Dornishman?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that's the first one that you meet in Game of Thrones, isn't it?
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, it's a good example of like who these people are. And then his wife is pretty crazy, or whatever she really is to him, wife, lover, whatever you want to say. And then
Paramore.
Paramore, yeah. And then their daughters are pretty crazy too. So I think it's weird because like the his brother though is pretty chilled out for what I feel is their representation of their people. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
His brother and then his brother's son, so it'd be his nephew too. They're both pretty chilled out, though, compared to the rest of them. But
yeah. They're more behind this idea that Dorne wants to be a part of the realm and included diplomatically. That
right,
there's a Dornishman on the small council. Um,
and I don't know if it's all Dornish or people from Dorne, but Oberyn and his paramour, his wife, whatever, they're pretty freaky.
no, I think that's just like a cultural thing.
Okay,
Yeah. I think they just embrace a lot of that stuff a lot more. Yeah, just culturally.
yeah.
Um, okay, well, um, I hate to break this to you, but we're going to talk about some Dornishmen today. And one in particular who is going to make Oberyn Martell look like super tame.
Well, let
So,
me let me ask you real quick, since you asked me about the Dornish. What Because we talked a little bit the other day off the podcast about um inspirations for different characters and different people in Game of Thrones for George R. R. Martin. Do you think that, or is there a group of people or a culture or whatever that you feel like he drew inspiration from for the Dornish?
now right off the
Oh,
top of my head, I mean, I could probably like try to draw some comparisons here, but not right off the top of my head. I mean, he draws so much, from real life stuff that I'm sure there
right.
is.
Yeah.
Why did you have like somebody in mind or
No, I was thinking about that the other day, and I was like, well, I'll ask him, see what he says. I mean, you seem to be really deep into all this stuff, so I would think that I would have thought maybe you already had an answer, but
no, not right
apparently I
off the
was
top of
wrong.
my head. I'm sure there is, but yeah, not
Yeah.
that I have right now. Okay. Well, so when we left off last episode, um, that was Aegon's coronation in Old Town. Um,
So
they
he
had,
finally made it all the way to Old Town, and yeah, he
yeah,
conquered everybody but the Dornish, basically, right?
basically.
Okay.
And that's kind of where we're going to start. Um,
Sorry, I wasn't trying to skip ahead there or
no, no,
rush
no,
or
no, you're
whatever.
good. No, ask questions. Um,
Why is the sky blue?
Not those kind of questions.
Oh man.
Um, so one of the things, there's a couple conflicts still going on in a few different groups who haven't completely submitted yet. Obviously, the biggest is going to be the Dornish.
Right.
So in the bite, and the Three Sisters, they crown a lady from House Sunderland, Marla Sunderland, and they declare themselves an independent nation. Um, so that's the first thing that Aegon's going to deal with here. He sends Torrhen Stark, since they're right there on the edge of Stark's territory. Um, and he has Torrhen Stark send out Warwick Manderly from White Harbor with his fleets, and them together with Visenya, they go to put down the rebellion. It crumbles pretty quickly, and people of the Three Sisters take Stefan Sunderland. He, I believe, is Lady Marla's younger brother, um, and put him as their new lord, like, or regent or whatever.
I mean, you would think
Um,
that being surrounded by as much like ocean as they are on the three islands there with, Long Sister, Sweet Sister, and Little Sister, you would think that they would have a good defense. But I mean, you're saying that it got crushed pretty quickly.
yeah.
So they must have had
Well,
a good force.
and
Of course, again,
we're talking about like fleets from White Harbor, like that's the best fleet in the northern part of the
true.
continent.
And then the
Um,
one thing that, that's a big difference maker is obviously the dragon for with Visenya.
yeah.
So
And
yeah,
Vagar is the second biggest at this point,
that's true. Yeah.
behind Balerion. So,
Right. Okay.
um, and so, yeah, they put Stefan Sunderland up as their new lord. Um, he swears fealty to the crown and to the Aerons as their liege lords again. And they give hostages to, like, from their family to be fostered. That's usually how these things go. Um, it happens a lot during the Blackfire rebellions. If there's a rebellion and it gets put down, there it's usually like, okay, you know, we'll forgive you, re-swear your fealty, pay some fines, and then also we're taking some, either, like, your kids or whoever, and they're not usually like imprisoned or anything. They're usually like fostered somewhere.
Well, and it's almost kind of like spoils, but and not really. I mean, it's just kind of like a trophy of like, this is a remembrance for us that we won. Basically, that's kind of how I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I almost feel like more
I mean,
in
isn't
the
go
Targaryen situation, it's, this is for you to remember because you lost,
true? Yeah,
you
I
know?
mean, wouldn't you kind of say that? I mean, I don't remember exactly the situation. Um, how of like, I mean, I know there was a battle and a war, but how they what's his name? Theon, is that how you say his name? Theon uh came to the Starks.
Oh, yeah. So it's the Greyjoy rebellion.
Theon
Um,
Greyjoy. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and when they put that down, the other brothers were dead. Like
Right. He
they
was
they
the only one
killed the
left.
others. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Theon was all that was left. So Ned took him to be fostered with them. And yeah,
Yeah.
like in that
So
situation,
that is
he's
that is
treated pretty well. He grows
right.
up as like a brother to them.
Yeah. Man, that's a sad
So,
story. That's one of the sadder parts of the Game of Thrones to me. Is just like his whole story and background and everything throughout the whole series.
oh, for sure.
you know but I mean, that's an example of like what happened here with the three sisters situation and the
Hmm.
fostering. Okay, so it's
Yeah.
the same thing. Okay, cool.
Yeah. You also once asked me if when this is a long time ago, but you asked me if when somebody's sent to the Silent Sisters, if they have their tongue cut out. And I didn't really have a solid answer for you then. Well, it happens to Lady Marla because she's sent to the Silent Sisters and has her tongue cut out.
Oh, but like joining the Silent Sisters.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I think what I was thinking of was it's in House of the Dragon. It's when they get those guys that are they're criminals. They take them out of the prison and they send them. I think they're the ones that ended up setting fire to was it Castle Blackrock? Is that what it's called?
BlackRock.
Or not? Well, the one that oh my gosh, I'm gonna find it here.
I
I'm gonna
don't
find it.
remember what scene you're talking about.
Um, hold on. Okay, so um, oh boy, it's been forever since I've seen this show, so now I'm trying to think of people's names. Um, okay, the dude with the foot fetish, his dad. Oh, can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Laris Strong, and I don't
Strong.
remember
Okay.
his dad's name. I mean, just Lord Strong.
Okay. So the castle that they were basically residing in,
Harrenhal.
Harrenhal. Okay. Um, him and his other son, remember, were killed in a
Okay,
fire
yep.
there.
Uh-huh, yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I
So those,
remember. And
yeah. So they
Laris
ended
let those two guys out.
right. Well, they cut their tongues out so that way,
Yep,
if they got caught, they wouldn't tell. They wouldn't be
yep.
able to tell. There it is, Harrenhal. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's what I was ended up thinking about. But yeah, what are
Okay.
we talking about?
The Silent
Story?
Sisters.
Yeah.
Lady Marley gets sent to the Silent Sisters.
Okay. Cool.
Also in the Iron Islands at this point, it's just complete chaos. Um,
Why is that?
because Aegon never went there. Like he never went there to conquer them. And at this time, and like just before this, the Iron Islands and the Riverlands are all part of like the same kingdom.
Mhm.
It's like the Kingdom of River and Isles or something, I think. And because the Ironborn, remember Heron the Black, he had Harrenhal. I don't know if you remember that
Right.
from last episode,
Right.
but
Yeah.
and they're Ironborn. And
Okay.
so the Ironborn used to have like a big spread out hold there from the Iron Islands across the Riverlands there.
That's weird.
Um,
Why did I think the Iron Islands was on the east side? That's weird.
it's funny how like you get a picture in your head
I
for like where
always,
these things are, and
yeah, I
yeah,
always pictured it on the east side. That's weird.
no.
Anyway.
Um, and so in the Iron Islands, Corin Volmark of Harlaw declares himself heir to the Black Line, which the Black Line of Heron. Um, and he's claiming that he's a descendant of Heron on like his grandmother's side. She was like related to Heron the Black somehow. Um, but then on Old Wick, these are all like different islands. The drowned priests crown one of their own Lodos, and he claims himself to be the son of the drowned god. On Great Wick, Pike, and Orkmont, they all present their own successors, their own lords, as being the new leaders, and they're all just fighting each other like constantly. Um, there was a report that krakens had gathered by like the hundreds in the waters in between the islands because there were so many bodies and so much blood from all the fighting. Um, so Aegon shows up with a fleet from the Arbor, Highgarden's fleet, and Lannisport's fleet. And then there were reports also that said that ships had been dispatched from Bear Island to the north also.
Oh wow.
Because they deal with the Ironborn raiders a lot too. So
Okay.
um, after the rebellion is put down, also very quickly, mostly because the Ironborn have just like depleted all their own men, like with all this
Let's say,
infighting, you know?
yeah, I was about to say when you split. I mean, for one thing, when you're splitting yourself up, you're making yourself thin there, and then on the fact that it's like you're just fighting each other, and you're basically fighting what every what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, basically six
Yeah.
groups fighting each other. Yeah, that's not gonna help at all.
Yeah. And
So
two of
yeah,
those
that
are
does not.
major naval powers, like in
Right,
Westeros.
right.
Um, um, eventually, uh, they go back and forth. Like Aegon's told by a lot of his advisors that they should, give over the Iron Islands to the Riverlands, like as part of their domain, or even the North because they're relatively close to the Stark's territory at that point. Um, but eventually, Aegon decides to let the Iron Islanders choose someone from their own to represent them, and Vicken Greyjoy is chosen to rule as Lord Reaper of Pike after um, the rebellion's put down, and he swears to the crown.
So is it when they're giving them the suggestion about either giving it to the North or to the Riverlands, is that more just kind of a deal? It's like so they don't have to worry about all that stuff and get involved with it, or is it just a deal of like, well, I mean, again, like that kind of goes with what I just said. I mean, just kind of passing it on to somebody else to deal with, even though they're still, in the Riverlands and even the North are, sworn to you. It's like, well, instead of making it basically the crown's problem, just make it a lower person's problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like the
Okay,
three sisters, so they have to swear to the Aarons, and then they swear to the crown. So like
got you.
the Vale, like the Aarons and the Vale are their liege lords.
Right,
Yeah, it's just that trickle down system. It's they're they pay tribute to you, you pay tribute to us. It's I guess yeah, it's kind of handing the problem over to somebody else, but it just doesn't really make sense for like the crown to have to worry about the Iron Islands. Like put somebody who's close by, make them a part
yeah.
of their territory.
So see, I guess in my mind, watching Game of Thrones, I flipped where the Iron Islands was at and where the Vale was at. I basically flipped them. So I thought the Vale was on the
Oh,
west side of the continent. I would just kind of pictured it like that, and I pictured the Iron Islands on the east side. Yeah, it probably would have done me good to actually like have a map, especially a good one like this that you gave me. But yeah. Hey,
yeah,
that's just
I
gonna give
had
me an excuse to go back through and watch it again, right?
yeah, for sure. So after those are put down, um, then all that's left is Dorne. So at first, Aegon attempts to persuade Miriam Martell, who is the Princess of Dorne at the time, by sending High Lords, Maesters, Septons, all these kind of prestigious people to treat with her and kind of persuade her on why it would be better for them to peacefully like join the kingdom, like why not put our two kingdoms together?
At least he gave him a chance, yeah.
Yeah,
Of just like, hey, this thing we can save a lot of lives and save a lot of headache and a lot of wasted years and just come together. So
right. And it's like you can think of Aegon as this conqueror, but things are generally better under the Targaryens for the most part, especially in the beginning here, because like these seven kingdoms have all been warring with each other for thousands of years. And he
right,
comes in and puts a stop to all of that. And now, like, we're all on the same team. We can all do business, we can all do trade, and we
right.
can focus on the people on the outside who are fucking up our trade routes and the stepstones,
Right.
or
Yeah, it's unfortunate that he gets the name the Conqueror attached to him because yeah, that I mean that just sounds dark and evil and menacing and unforgiving, and just like yeah, I don't know.
I find
Because
it
I mean
hard to root
he's
for the
not that
Dornish,
way.
even though
You
they
find it
just want to
hard to
be
root
in.
for the Dornish? Yeah.
Yeah, even though they just want to be independent,
Yeah.
like that's their word. That's House Martell's words: unbowed,
Right.
unbent, unbroken.
I mean, it's like, we've been going good for, by ourselves. So it's like, why do we need to, get involved here with everybody else? Why do we got to be on your team?
Yeah. But
So,
they spend a year, well, almost a year in negotiations, and
whew.
they can't come into any agreements.
Well, that's a lot of wasted time.
Yeah.
That sucks.
So in 4 AC, Rhaenys goes back to Dorne and fulfills the promise of fire and blood that she promised before
Now,
whenever
hold
she
on.
visited her.
Now, when you say AC, that's after conquest. Is that what they?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, she sets fire to the Planky town in the Green's Blood, but there's fewer than 100 casualties. And most of those are people drowning trying to just get
Get
out of
away.
there in the
Yeah.
river.
Hmm.
Um, but there's just like, there's nobody there. Like that's like the thing. There's only like a few people there. As the same time that at the same time that this is happening, Oris Baratheon. Remember Oris Baratheon?
Hmm.
He's Aegon's bastard half brother. He's now in charge of Storm's End, and he's Aegon's his hand. He's the first hand of the king. He leads 1,000 knights of the Bone Way, and at that time also Aegon is leading 30,000 men up the Prince's Pass. So it's kind of a three-pronged attack. Rhaenys is hitting Planky Town, Oris Baratheon's going up the Bone Way, and then Aegon has the bulk of the force, and Balerion going up the Prince's Pass.
Now, where's
Um,
Plinky Town? Because I can't see that on my map here. Is that on the west side? Because it would make
yeah,
sense. It would
or
make sense
no.
because Princess Pass is in the middle, Boneway's on the east side. So it would make sense that if you're saying it's basically a three-prong attack, that Plinky Town would be on the west side of the Red Mountains.
Planky Town is no, because it's just off the Green's Blood. So it would be close to Sunspear down there.
Oh, oh, okay. So it's
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
like they're coming from basically both sides if you want to look at it.
Yeah,
They're coming
yeah.
from the north and they're coming from kind of the east,
Yes.
southeast. Okay.
Yeah.
I got what you're saying now.
Um,
Trying to meet in the middle, I guess.
yeah. Um, so as they go, the ground forces, the wells are poisoned in front of them, fields are burned. The Dornish have seen him coming and just pushed back. After passing through the mountains, Aegon divides his forces and he sends Lord Tyrell to Hellholt to take on Uther Oller, and he himself goes to Skyreach after Lord Fowler. Um, Tyrell loses 25% of his men and almost all of his horses just due to the heat and lack of food and water. Um, but he's lost that much by the time that he even reaches Hellholt. And when he gets there, they find it abandoned. Um,
They're
This is going to
basically
be,
they're basically going scorch earth policy. It's like don't leave anything behind. It's like if they want to keep marching forward, and that's fine, but you're gonna have to go off of your own supplies, and that's gonna run out quick.
yeah,
And I mean, it's not like, the land of Dorne is, gigantic, but I mean it's no like it's not the north, that's for sure. But I mean
that's a lot of desert.
that's a lot of desert, man.
It's
That's a
all
lot of
desert
desert.
and mountains.
Yeah.
Like,
I was gonna say if you can get through the mountains, there in the north, I mean, there's nothing but desert waiting for you after that.
and that's the thing. A lot
Yeah.
of these castles are like up in the mountains. And so they're
Strategically
extremely
placed.
hard to get to.
Yeah.
Um, like sometimes it's going to take a ridiculous force to breach one of these castles, and you're going to lose most of your men. It's like yeah.
Yeah.
They're a tough enemy to deal with. So at the same time as all this is going on, Oris Baratheon is leading his army up the Bone Way. Um, the thing about all this is like they have a lot of men. Like Aegon and Oris Baratheon have quite a few men. They're all like elite guys. At least like Oris Baratheons. It's said that they're handpicked knights, so Oris Baratheon went through all of these guys, and these are going to be some of the best fighters, best suited to this kind of stuff. And they can't ever get a fair fight. Like going into Dorne, it's nothing but, like you were saying, just burn and run. And they can't ever get a good fight out of these guys. If they could meet them just on the field in a fair fight, they would just roll over them.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So, like you said, before they turned their attention on Dorne, you had all these little things you kind of had to clean up on the rest of the continent. So now that they're focusing on Dorne, are they basically drawing from everybody that they can to join their army? Or is it just like, oh, well, we just have this select few? You know what I'm saying?
It's mostly going to be people in the region that
Okay.
we're seeing dealing with this.
They're not raining all
So
hell on them.
no. What's his name? Which one of the Tyrells? Um, I don't remember which one, but it was the Lord Tyrell at the time. So that's from Highgarden, which is going to be just
Right.
to
Mhm.
the northeast or northwest there.
Right.
So yeah, it's mostly going to be people from the region. I mean, also these are people who hate the Dornish, like
Okay.
people from these regions. Yeah. So it's kind of the people
No
you
love
want to
lost.
make up the bulk of your force. Yeah.
Right. Okay. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's like if there was no mountains, no desert, and they didn't have the whole, scorched earth policy basically going on, and you just met them out in the field, yeah, this thing would be over quick.
Yeah.
But
Plus, as we're going to see going on, support for this, like, I don't want to say dwindles, but some
but
people get
I
more
mean,
mad about it. Other people are like this is not going
you
well.
get weary though.
Um,
I mean, you get discouraged, you get weary, especially if you're a soldier, you get worn down and you start losing hope and you start losing your confidence the longer it gets drawn out, especially after, some of the things that have gone on in Aegon's conquest of like how quickly they were able to take over. Well, I mean, just how quickly they were able to take over the continent, in the beginning. And now it's like you get into this, you're just trying to conquer this one small area that's way smaller than the rest of the continent, and you're having such a hard time with it. That's
yeah.
very discouraging. And you have dragons. That's very discouraging. So,
So Oris Baratheons attacked constantly on the Bone Way. Um, they just keep coming up on stuff that like slows them down. They found all the crops burned, they found all the wells poisoned. At one point, they couldn't get through a certain pass because it had been blocked with like hundreds of sheep's, like rotting sheep's carcasses.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, um, so just stuff like that. Um, they were crossing the River Will, um, and there's a bridge there, and they got caught out on that bridge. Um, from the front, there were up on the cliffs, there were tons of arrows being rained down on them. It said thousands of arrows.
Wow.
And from behind, when they finally started to try to retreat, there was a bunch of like huge boulders that were rolled down into the canyon there. So that cut off their retreat. Oris Baratheon and a few of the other lords are captured. Everybody else is killed, and they're captured by um, this crazy bastard, the Will of Will, otherwise known as the Widow Lover.
Nice
Yeah,
name.
yeah, yeah.
The widow lover. I will
Um,
love your widows.
and this dude's crazy. And unfortunately, he's one of the ones that lasts like quite a while. He's a survivor.
Okay.
Um, Aegon has a really easy go of it compared to everybody else. Um,
Wonder
Aegon,
why is that?
it's because it's the way that he goes, like
Okay.
the path that he takes.
And he's on
Um,
the prince's pass, right?
yes.
Okay.
There was runoff, I guess, from the mountains there, I believe it said. And so there was a lot more game. There was a lot more stuff just like growing, fresh water. So
This is
all of that
easy.
stuff is like made, yeah, easily available to him. He takes Skyreach, Yonwood, Tor, and at Ghost Hill, Lord Tollan sends out a champion to fight Aegon in single combat.
Nice.
And Aegon kills him and realizes that he's just Lord Tollan's fool that they sent out in armor.
Wow.
When he gets to Ghost Hill, the castle there, it's completely abandoned.
Oh, jeez. So that
Yeah.
basically was kind of a distraction, so maybe they could just get away.
Yeah. And
Oh
just
wow.
to fuck with him.
Just to
Like
mess with them,
that's
yeah.
that's what the Dornish are doing, like through most of this. They're just fucking with them. Um,
See, that's the thing about it. When you start, it's one thing to do the physical battle, but when you start playing the mental game, that's on a different level, man.
yeah, when you
That's
go
what
through
makes you
all this
crazy.
shit and then you get
Yeah,
somewhere and there's no one there. Like there's no enemy to fight. They all disappeared. And
right,
it's like they didn't just run away. Like
right.
they're
Where are they
they're
at?
still around.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
Um so Aegon goes from Ghost Hill to Sunspear, and that's where he finds Rhaenys after she goes from the Planky Town. Rhaenys had already taken Lemonwood, Spotswood, and you're gonna like this Stinkwater.
Delicious. What's that
Um,
smell?
After taking all those places and realizing that the Shadow City surrounding Sunspear was also pretty much abandoned, Aegon takes this as
Ah,
victory. And so he gathers who's left the lords to Sunspear, and he proclaims John Rosby as Warden of the Sands and appoints Lord Tyrell in one castle, a couple of the other lords in a few other places, like, spreads them
right.
out. And then him, Aegon and Visenya, they go back to King's Landing.
This is too easy.
Oh yeah,
I don't like
because
it.
as quick as they get back to King's Landing, Dorne erupts.
Oh boy.
Um, they start coming out of everywhere. They come out of the Shadow
Out of the
City. They
woodworks. Oh
retake
wow.
Sunspear. When they retake Sunspear, they take John Rosby and throw him from the highest tower.
No.
Um,
Wow.
but
See,
he
that's what I
actually
was like when you were like, yeah, so he made it through the Prince's Pass and he made it all the way to Sunspear. I was like, what happened in between? I mean, where's all the fight? I was like, no, this is too
not
easy.
much. He like super easily took all of those
Just walk
castles.
through
Like,
it, man. Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. But like you said, I mean, they go into hiding and they just wait for their moment. And here it is. Here's their moment. Here's a
yep.
chance.
Um, let's see, where are we? Oh, okay. So yeah, they throw John Rosby out the tower.
It said, yeet.
And then they but he like gets off super easy because all of the other lords, like at the other places, they like like they just like torture the fuck out of him. And then Lord Tyrell, so he's at pull my map back up here.
Are you looking at the same map as me?
Yes.
Okay.
Lord Tyrell. I can't remember exactly where he is. He's in one of these castles, though, that is kind of well positioned in the middle of the others to be able to put down any
Any
rebellions that had
rebellions?
popped up.
Okay.
So that's why he's there. He hears about everything that happens, and he's going to ride out to Sunspear, retake the city. But
That's a good one.
yeah, somewhere out there, they just completely disappear, like in the Dornish desert. Like his entire force, none of them are
Oh,
ever seen again.
wow.
Yeah,
No trace of their bodies,
no
nothing.
trace of them, all gone.
Again, just adds to the craziness that is
Yeah,
Dorne.
yeah, and that's why a lot of people are like, "Oh,
Wow.
uh,"
I don't
because
know
our
why we're
like
here.
entire armies are just disappearing. No, I'm even saying people on the other side of the continent
No, that's what I'm
who
saying. I was like, I
might,
don't even know why we're involved in this.
yeah, like
I don't
they,
want anything to do with them.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is
Oof.
all
Wow.
very, very scary.
Start to wonder if you poked the bear.
Yeah.
Did we do something wrong? Did we do the wrong thing?
So after all this happens, this sets off a 7-year war that is really just a burning campaign from both sides.
It's a
Um,
stalemate.
Oris Baratheon is returned for ransom. Finally, him and some of the other lords that were taken by the Will of Will.
Okay, I was wondering what happened to them. If they were
Yeah,
still
they are
captured that whole
finally
time, whatever.
returned.
Okay.
Um, but upon like their return, uh, they they find that they're each missing their sword hand. Like they've each had their sword hand cut off. And it was
Nice.
so that they could never take up arms against Dorne again.
Okay. Yeah.
And that really pisses Aegon off. And so he goes to the Will's castle with Balerion and melts down like a good chunk of the castle, just totally
Nice.
harrenhals it. Just,
Right.
yeah. But the Wills, like the main part of their family, survived because they say at their castle, and I got to assume at a lot of these other castles, there are series of like tunnels and caves underneath them. And so they just go down there and hang out until
We're just
it's
gonna
all
chill.
over. and then they come back out.
See, and again, talking off of the podcast the other day, you described some of their tactics as kind of like what we've seen from what was it? What was his name? The crab guy, the
Oh, the
crab
crab
man,
feeder. Yeah.
the crab feeder. There you go. Yeah, I mean some of their tactics in the stepstones where it's just like, you attack and then you come back into the actual mountain, into the tunnels and everything. You just chill out and just wait your time, wait it out, and then you go back out and do your thing again. So
Yeah. Yep. Um so Aegon burns down their castle. And there's going to be a lot of back and forth after this. It's we hit, you hit, we hit, you hit. The Dornish invaders attack Cape Wrath, so they're going to come across the Sea of Dorne there with help from a pirate king in the Stepstones at this time.
oh no.
And then they are going to burn most of the Rainwood in retaliation for all these burnings of the castles.
Okay.
Then a year later, Aegon and Visenya return to Dorne and burn all of the previously captured castles that they had. And then the year after that, so that happened like 7 AC. Year after that, they come back again and burn all those castles again. Like they're just going to give it to them over and over and over
we're just gonna
and over.
We're just gonna keep burning.
Yep. And so from that kind of brings us up to the quote I gave at the beginning of the episode. Lord Fowler takes Castle Night Song in the Reach. Then the Danes attack Old Town at the same time as that's going on. Because Old Town has sent out forces to retake Night Song, and then the Danes are going to hit them while they're doing that.
It's just like what happened at Winterfell in Game of Thrones, the Greyjoys, Iron Islands or the Iron Fleet saw their.
Oh yeah, they sent most of
their
men
opportunity
to Torrhen Square,
Yep.
And yeah. In the books, I think that's a little bit different. I think in the books, it's Ramsay is like gone behind their backs to like put something together, like a force together to come after the Starks. I can't remember.
Which is weird because I mean, then in the show, Ramsay basically is sent in to get rid of the Iron Fleet or the Ironborn. I mean,
yeah,
in a way. I mean, obviously, there's the intention of, with his dad his dad, betraying, Robb Stark, and then eventually they take over Winterfell and so on and so forth. But Warden of the North.
In the book, he's a prisoner there.
Who, Ramsay?
Yes.
Is a prisoner at Winterfell?
Yes, and his name is Reek.
Really?
Yeah, that's what he calls himself.
Oh, weird. Okay.
And he gets Theon to like let him out and then kind of gets buddy with him. And then he turns him into Reek. Basically. Yeah.
What's your name? My name is Reek. Lord. A shell of a man by the end of it.
Oh yeah.
Good Lord.
So then a year after the Danes attack Old Town, Lord Fowler takes Night Song. Skyreach, Hellholt, and Starfall all burn again. All three of them come back, Aegon, Visenya, and Rhaenys, and burn all the castles. But this is where things are going to kind of start to take a turn. At Hellholt, that is where Rhaenys and Meraxes are shot down. And it's kind of unclear if Rhaenys died in the fall or if she dies after the fact. But we know that Aegon and Visenya never see her or hear from her again. So
They're basically just kind of, I mean, they don't really know if she's even still alive or not, or if she's dead, is
they
what you're saying.
presume they
They
presume her
presume
dead.
it. Yeah, you
Yeah.
would. I mean, at a certain point, you're just like, okay, yeah, she's
Yeah.
probably dead, but okay.
Fall far, probably crushed on under your dragon, you know.
Oh God, yeah.
And it's shot down with a scorpion bolt. So they can do some damage when they hit the right spots.
Right,
So
right.
um and that's in 10 AC. So when that happens. Um go to my other notes over here. So after this happens, Aegon and Visenya are they kind of lose it a little bit. Not definitely not going crazy, but they
Get a little motivation
they
there.
want to put this down. They want to
Yeah,
end this, you know.
yeah.
Sunspear, which has been spared this entire time to try to turn the people of Dorne against their leader,
Right.
is finally burned 3 times over within just like a year or two.
Nice.
They say that the sand around Hellholt was like so burned that it had been fused into glass in places
Oh
from just
wow.
being burned so much. Um, Lord Fowler, Lord Vaith, Lady Tolland, and 4 different successors, other than that, who were to be the lords of Hellholt, were murdered one after another because the Iron Throne had offered bounties on Dornish lords. And so every person that Maria Martell put in charge of those places would get killed like almost immediately. So this is very like it's not one-sided at all. It's like constant attacks back and forth. Like nobody can keep anybody safe. Um, and then it happens in King's Landing too, like on the other side of things. Dornish assassins killing off all these Westerosi lords. Lord Connington, he's killed while hunting. Lord Merton, his whole family's poisoned with Dornish wine. Um, Lord Fell is killed. And then all the time, Aegon and Visenya would get attacked in the streets by like random assassins. That's what kind of eventually leads to Visenya talking him into the formation of the Kingsguard. 7 best swords to
Right.
watch out for the king and his
Your
family.
your best man, yeah.
Yeah. Um, let's talk about Will of Will for a second.
Okay.
This
I
guy's
was just about to
crazy.
ask you, what's going on with old Will?
Are you familiar with um there's a couple book characters. I'm going to try to remember one of them. One I know is the Mad Huntsman. There's a Mad Huntsman, and then there's also Vargo Hoat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're 2 really, really, really bad guys in the Game of Thrones books, and they're pretty
Okay.
crazy,
Okay.
and they do a lot of fucked up shit. So they remind me a lot of Will of Will.
Surprised they didn't put
Um,
him in as characters in the show.
um,
They there's somebody based off of him, kind of.
no, but you get to see 2 guys who are in a group with Vargo Hoat, and their group is called the Brave Companions.
Okay.
And yeah, they're kind of like a sellsword company. and they're horrible people. Like they're just
Okay.
like, yeah, really fucked up group of guys. And the two, I don't know if you remember when Arya first meets Jaqen Hagar, he's locked up in that cage with those two
Oh,
guys.
that's right. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
So those two guys are Rorge and Biter,
Mhm.
and they're from the Brave Companions.
Okay. Gotcha.
In the books, I believe Biter actually like takes a huge chunk out of Brienne's throat or her shoulder or something. I can't
Shoulder.
remember.
Oh god.
Yeah.
He's a vampire.
So the Will of Will, as a part of these atrocities back and forth, he shows up at the wedding of Sir John Cafferin, who's the heir to Fontaine, to Alice Oakhart, daughter of the Lord of Old Oak. And he is admitted in through one of the gates by basically just one of their men who betrays them.
It's an insider, yeah.
Yep. He kills most of the yep, so he kills Lord Oakhart and he kills most of the guests at the wedding. They geld John Cafferin, so that's good. That's what
They
you want.
what?
They geld him.
What's that?
I
Oh
think
boy.
that's where they take your balls off.
How do you spell that? I've never heard of that before. I mean, I know that that happens, but yeah. Yep, you're right. Okay.
Yep. And
Never
then
heard that term though.
there's also a lot of rape that goes on during this wedding too. So they just kind of trash the place.
It's a wedding. What else are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
Love is in the air.
And then it says oh God, they sell off most of like her handmaidens and stuff to
Oh
a
wow.
Mirish slaver.
Oh boy.
So, yep, good stuff there. Um,
That's Will. That's Will for you.
and then I'll give you another quote here from
Yeah.
Fire and Blood. By
Sorry.
then, Dorne was a smoking desert beset by famine, plague, and blight, a blasted land, traders from the free cities called it. Yet House Martell still remained unbowed, unbent, unbroken, as their words avowed. One Dornish knight, brought before Queen Visenya as a captive, insisted that Mary Martell would sooner see her people dead than slaves to House Targaryen, and Visenya replied that she and her brother would be glad to oblige the princess. Maria Martell
Nice.
dies in 13 AC. I mean, she's old as hell. She's in bad health.
So say natural or did they kill her?
Natural. And then it also includes there that there was a rumor started by her enemies that said that she died while she was banging a horse, basically. Just
Nice.
shit talking, just
Shame.
just people from the Reach doing some shit talking.
Right. Nice.
So Nymar Martell, he succeeds after her. That's her son. And he doesn't really want to keep this going. Like,
why is it? Wait, hold on a second though. Why is it? And we talked about this not so long ago. It's always, and this kind of applies to the parents have something going. They have a company. They have or in this case, they have a kingdom. They pass it on to their kids, and their kids want nothing to do with it. I'm not really interested in that. See, life.
I think you see it as a different lens because you're slightly, or through a different lens because you're slightly removed from it.
Yeah.
And you like grow up with this, most of your life. This took up like, let's see, 4 to 13. This took up
Well, you said it was
years.
Yeah.
For 9 years, Nymor watched all this happen.
Right.
Well, his mom like would not like budge at
Give
all.
in, nothing. Yeah. Well, and then
at this point, the country is a smoking ruin.
right. And then to hear your mom basically say, I would rather, you know, have all my people die than to what she describes as become slaves to Aegon and the Targaryen house.
which is a
You
little
know,
excessive,
yeah, it's
you
a
know,
little
on
excessive.
both ends. Like, you guys aren't going to be slaves to the Targaryens.
Right.
They're trying to bring you into the realm. Like, there's going to be
Yeah.
open trade. There's going to
But that's
be
but that's
everybody's going
politics
to be a
for you,
lot
bro.
more rich for it.
Yeah. That's politics and war.
Yeah,
Is to convince your people that they want to
that's
enslave
politics,
us. And
bitch.
yep. So
Um, so Nymore doesn't want to. He doesn't want to keep this going. He's already pretty old, so his mom must have been like in her late 70s, early 80s, because he's already 60 at this point and already not in good health. So, um, he sent his daughter,
what do I
Daria,
think of? Why do I
Daria.
think of? I think of the Queen, Queen Elizabeth dying not so long ago, and then her son was it Charles, Prince Charles, and he's like 80, 90. It's like, oh my God, man.
Yeah,
That's basically it. That's a good comparison.
yeah. But he sends a delegation and he returns the skull of Meraxes and
Ah,
gives some peace terms.
that's pretty
And
cool.
he sends his daughter Daria as the head of the envoy.
Now, is he offering her though? Or is it just kind of a we talked about before, sometimes marriage pacts are big deals
Oh, no, 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 no.
in the political game, so I didn't know if okay.
No, he's just sending a family member as a sign of
As a
respect.
gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay.
he's like showing some vulnerability there too.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
like sending his daughter. So
My own blood, yeah.
yeah. Um, but Visenya and a lot of people on the King's Council are not into this. Like, they
Really?
feel
Okay.
like, yeah, they take up this saying, no peace without submission.
Well, but
Um,
you would think after, like you said, 9 years of all this going on, and the mental games that they've had to play with the Dornish, you would probably think there's a little uneasiness too in the back of their minds of this could be just another trick to really jack with us. This may just be some strategic move on their part. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So I'm sure like you're uneasy about everything that's going on at this point and very weary or very aware of any movements, nothing. You're very suspicious, you're very paranoid almost.
yeah.
So
And
that's the Dornish for you.
there's like a really heavy weight to all of this. Like,
Yeah.
almost nobody wants to just accept a peace with Dorne, because like a peace without submission, which is
Well,
what they're
and yeah,
saying.
and right. And it's just like at that point, it's like, what is this going to say about us and our relationship with these people if it's just a peace and it's a stalemate, we're all good on either side, and there's no repercussions on the Dornish side.
Yeah, they felt like there was a lot of spilled blood that had to be answered for.
Right.
Plus, for the two of them, it's their sister.
Right.
So, um, and then, yeah, it says here that even in King's Landing, the king dared not let the Dornish outside the Aegon fort without a strong escort for fear that the small folk of the city would tear them to pieces.
Whew.
So there's
Yeah.
a lot of hate for the Dornish right now. Um, but Princess Daria gives Aegon a sealed letter from her father and said that it was only for him to read. Um, Aegon reads the letter, and when he gets up from the Iron Throne, they said that his hand was dripping with blood. So, probably gripping the throne so
So
hard for
tight.
whatever reason.
Oh, man.
Um, He burned the letter and he never talks to anybody about it. But that night he rides Balerion to Dragonstone, and in the morning he comes back um, and signs a treaty of eternal peace with Dorne. Um, and nobody knows what was in that letter.
Oh man. Any
There's
speculation?
there is some speculation.
Okay.
I'll give you another quote here.
Yeah, let's hear it.
To this day, no one can say with certainty what might have been in Daria's letter. Some claim it was a simple plea from one father to another, heartfelt words that touched King Aegon's heart. Others insist it was a list of all those lords and noble knights who had lost their lives during the war. Certain septons even went so far as to suggest that the missive was ensorcelled, that it had been written by the Yellow Toad before her death using a vial of Queen Rhaenys own blood for ink, so that the king would be helpless to resist its malign magic. Grand Maester Clegg, who came to King's Landing many years later, concluded that Dorne no longer had the strength to fight. Driven by desperation, Clegg suggested, Prince Nymor might have threatened that should his peace be refused, he would engage the Faceless Men and Bravos to kill King Aegon's son and heir, Queen Rhaenys' boy, Aenys, then but 6 years old. It may be so, but no man will ever truly know. And so that's when
Doggy.
war ends.
That's some heavy stuff, man. That's some heavy speculation there.
Yeah,
Man.
there's a lot there. I had heard another one too that like it might have been that Rhaenys had survived, but she was just being tortured in a dungeon somewhere. And if he would submit to peace, then they would just kill her.
Right. Put her out of her misery.
Yeah. So, yeah, a lot of possibilities there.
Wow.
Well,
but he signs it. Peace is had.
Yeah.
Peace to all, and to all a peaceful night.
Then Aegon sits as king for another 24 years, but the Dornish conflict was the last of Aegon's wars. Now, at this point, we've just got a peace treaty with Dorne. They are not part of the Seven Kingdoms.
Okay, so it's just basically, hey, we're just at peace. You just do your thing. We're going to do our thing.
Uh-huh.
Oh, boy.
Yep. It's going to be another, I can't remember how many years. It's going to be another many years, many, many years before Dorne is finally forcefully brought into the realm.
Okay. Is it before Game of Thrones time or is it after Game of Thrones time?
Oh, way before.
Way before, okay.
Yeah, much closer to this.
Okay. Gotcha.
Before the dance.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
So I think it was before the dance. I don't remember now that I'm saying it.
We're going to find out.
We'll get there. We're going to get there in this chapter by chapter. The next one we're going to be doing is Three Heads Had the Dragon governance under King Aegon the First.
Okay.
So that'll be the next chapter that we're doing. Politics. That's politics, bitch.
Yep, exactly. Sweet. We're the pickle party.
Instead of lemons or limes, we're going to vote pickles.
We're going to vote pickles. Cool, man. That was an interesting chapter.
Did you enjoy that one?
I did.
How do you prefer this? Do you like to just hear me tell you the story, or would you like to read the story ahead of time and discuss it?
Reading? Me?
I know you're not the biggest reader.
No, I do. No, I like to read. Is it on audiobooks? No.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. No.
And it's actually narrated by
Oh no.
I think his name's Henry Lloyd. It's the guy who plays Viserys Targaryen in Game of Thrones.
Oh. Ugh. I don't
Viserys,
want
however many.
I don't want the dragon to read it to me. I don't even want to hear him in Game of Thrones.
See, it's actually like kind of good though. Like he does I think the Dunk and Egg books too.
I guess as long as I don't have to look at his ugly face while he's talking.
And he's just like talking in his voice. He's not like doing the character and like entirely. Like he's just kind of doing a voice.
Weird.
So
yeah, I don't know. Maybe the next one I should read the chapter and then we can see how it goes like that. Because it would be nice to have at least a little foundation. That way it doesn't look like we're just in school and I have no clue what's going on.
And then I can kind of clear some stuff up for you if you...
Yeah. What would you listeners like? Would you like me to read or not read? Leave us a comment. Thumbs up the video. Let us know.
That is it for this episode of the Throne of the Dragon podcast. But if you get done with this one and you want to listen to some other stuff we do, we've got a few other shows. We've got
Speed
the
run.
Red Right.
Yeah, less than a minute.
Oh, here we go. We've got the Red Right Hand podcast, which covers each and every episode of the Netflix and BBC show, The Peaky Blinders. We go through all 6 seasons of that with a bunch of history episodes. So if you're a fan of Peaky Blinders, you want to get into that, go listen to our comprehensive rewatch of that show. We've also got 2 other shows, the History of the Corps podcast and its sister podcast, the History of the Corps After Hours, which cover core genre bands and whether we like it or not. I think that's it. That's all of them. Follow us on Twitter, it is Survived by Productions. Follow me at Joshua Langary. You can follow us on TikTok at It is Survived by Productions, and on YouTube at It is Survived by Productions. We'll see you next week.